All right, so now we're going to talk about the Blade Nano. Um, the quad itself is pretty simplistic. It has a basic video camera on the front. If you notice it's out of focus, it can be turned to refocus it. There are 4 motors, 2 which are clockwise and 2 which are counterclockwise. You can pretty much look at the props and figure out which one is which. When it comes to spare parts, the motors are marked and also the cables color coded, so you can see on the bottom of the quad. See, there's 2 red and 2 black, or red and blue and 2 black and white. So in case if for any reason you happen to need a motor replacement, you can just basically whatever color you need, you can replace it specifically. And then if you break a prop, which I'm pretty sure at some point you will, you can just basically find whatever prop you need to replace it. In an extreme crash, worst case scenario, you might break your frame, so I went ahead and told you to get an extra frame as well. The other couple things that you also have an extra, you have your battery for your fat shark goggles that's already right here, but you also have an extra brand new one as well that's in there. And also remember earlier when we were talking about the charger, this is the charging lead for it specifically. You also have a handful of batteries that are in here. I pulled 2 out of the package, and I think you have 3 others, so I think you have a total of 5 in there if I remember right. There's also some additional stuff that came with your quad and your fat shark. Like this is the original 2.4 antenna for your goggles, which you probably never use. The cable right here is a special cable you can use to hook up the fat shark goggles to output or input video into them. So you can actually hook up like another screen or things like that if you want to. The quad itself, when you're ready to actually power it up, as I said earlier, you want to make sure you turn on your remote.
Welcome to OpenTX.
The quad itself has a little spot underneath for the battery to go in. The important thing to do with the quad is whenever you actually get ready to turn it on, it is important that when you plug it in that you set it down almost instantly. Because what it does is right when you set it down, it sets the gyro, so it actually knows what level is. So if you accidentally have it cockeyed or crooked whenever you set it down, the quad will not fly correctly. So just make sure that you take a moment and make sure you actually, when you actually go to fly this, take a second and when you level it down, make sure it actually is flying correctly. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you the quad itself actually flying. So if you notice, as I said earlier when we talked about it, if you notice that it has a drift going forward or back that's really extensive, this has just a little bit of drift to the left, so I can trim it just a little bit to get it to stay. So sometimes when you make a trim adjustment, it will change the other ones. You might have to trim one of the other ones a little bit, but the quad itself will eventually, when the battery gets low, the light on it will change. If you notice right now, it's an auto level, so right now as soon as I touch the stick, it turns and moves a little bit, but as soon as I let it go, it wants to level back out. Now if I switch to rate mode, let me get off the ground a little bit here. So as I tilt back, in this mode you can actually do a few other things, but oh, there you go. So that's why I said you gotta be a little careful when you switch into rate mode, but basically when you do that, if you're not careful, you can turn it upside down, and that's what I did. But as I said, you want to start with basically flying completely in altitude mode. And see right now I still have it in rate mode, which is why it's red. Now it's back to blue, which means it's in self-leveling mode, altitude mode. As I said, this will probably be the mode you want to fly in most of the time until you get better or you're outside. When you're outside rate mode, you'll have a lot more control. So anyways, happy flying. I'll get this packed up to you, and then hopefully here in a month or 2 you'll be ready to fly something a little bigger and you'll probably be comfortable with it. Have a good evening.